Okay, so today's class, this is going to start a series, and I want to do a quick shout out to a notary in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in Texas, Laura Rose. She sent me a cool email, and she basically is a new agent who wanted us to break down all the red flags that could stop a signing from happening. And she's a new agent. She hasn't started working yet, but her email was awesome. She really knows what to look out for. So this really got me thinking that we should really break down every bit of the notary signing agent process. And we'll kind of go in detail about how to prepare for signings all the way to how to get paid and how to deal with payment issues. And when the book's ready, you're going to see there's a whole section about the notary process. So I got to steal a little bit from the book. That's more in depth, but this is a good overview. So we're going to call this series the NSA process. This is part 1. So welcome. Let's get into it. Okay, so you've accepted a signing. You've negotiated the price. The signing's yours. You've talked to the scheduler. It's in your name. You have an order. All of the slides of examples today are going to be with our website on the SnapDocs platform. So this is what it's going to look like for you. So if you're really new, this is going to be a good visualization of what you're going to see. Okay, so you've accepted the signing. It's yours. First things first, you want to review the order. So when you log on to SnapDocs, you're going to open that order. In this case, we're using a fake signing, but it's actually my sister-in-law and brother-in-law's name. So Tim and Sheena Dybert. So the Dyberts are refinancing. They're getting a HELOC. You're assigned to it. So you'll click on that order. And first thing, you thoroughly review the entire order. So the order is typically one web page. At the very top, you'll see the signing time and date as shown on the order. So that should have already been communicated to you on that introductory call from the scheduler or text message that you may have received. So you want to make sure that that's exactly what you agreed to previously. What will happen sometimes is a notary will maybe on the phone, they think it's for tomorrow, and then they jump on the order and they see it's for today. So you want to make sure that the information is correct. Because sometimes when that happens, the notaries will then ask to be reassigned because they thought it was the wrong day. So you want to get that out of the way right away. You don't want to wait until a day or two later and the time isn't what you can agree to or what you can do. So you want to review the signing time, date, the type of signing, or we're going to call that the product. So in this example, this is a HELOC. You want to see if there's scan backs that are required. That'll show on the web page, and I'll show you an example of that in a minute. As well as the borrower contact information. You want to make sure you have that. So you can see on the left of my screen, this is what it's going to look like on your end. It'll have the product, it'll have the client, in which case this is a coast-to-coast signing. It will normally have another client, like maybe, I don't know, First American or Stewart Title, or any title company. The contact, that's the person that hired coast to coast for the job. So in this case, that's me. File number, that's the escrow or title company's number. And then the signer's name and both signers. So sometimes, and we'll go into that more, sometimes you're assigned an order and it only says one name, but in reality, there are multiple signers. So we'll talk about how you can make sure that you know all the signers who need to be there. And then you want to review the fee. This is important. And if you've attended our other classes and when you get the book, you'll see we advocate that fee negotiation is done prior to accepting the signing. Now, sometimes signing specifics change and there has to be a fee adjustment afterwards. But while you're on the phone, you've negotiated the fee, make sure that that fee reflects what you negotiated for. Every once in a while, say you're requesting more than our base fee, we'll forget to change that fee when we assigned you. So that was the time to say, hey, we agreed on 85, not 65. And you can do that in our portal. There's an activity section. But now's the time that you make sure that fee matches what you negotiated. And you want to limit your negotiating after you've accepted the signing. There's a lot of reasons why, and we go into them. One reason is that we have to request more from our clients sometimes, and our clients really, their fees are previously structured and set. So that negotiation needs to be done beforehand so we can approach our client and tell them the situation. You're going to also want to review general signing company instructions and specific instructions. The next slide will show you what that looks like. And there's going to be an activity section. That's where you're basically going to document the history of the file. Everything you do needs to be in that activity. So let's look and see what that looks like. So yeah, review this general and special instructions. We really can't emphasize this enough. You might ask questions that are easily answered from these two places. One complaint we'll get is that you have a lot of instructions. Some of our older clients, been with us a long time, those instructions just keep getting added to as we've had different situations and maybe issues and problems. Take the time and read them. Some are specific to a lender, some are just general. So let's look at an example of what I'm talking about. So to the left is the specific instructions. These are instructions that most of the time are specific to this file. Sometimes we add pre-written instructions there, like in this case for a specific product, but most of the time, oh, I'm ahead of myself. Most of the time they're going to be specific to this file. So they might say something like, ensure that both signers are present. I mean, really the list is endless. Signings taking place at Starbucks, make sure to wear a mask and gloves, whatever might be needed. But in this case, this is for a HELOC. Oh, I'm all messed up today. Okay, so please watch this video on how to complete a HELOC loan, and we give a YouTube link. So for this specific product, we have a video on how to complete this job perfectly. So you want to watch that video if it was there. There's also this blurb about scheduling. So for this particular signing, if you need to confirm a time that works best for the borrowers. And if you don't do that, you're not going to get docs. So this kind of product is obtaining docs relies heavily on you scheduling the appointment. So special instructions, you might get an answer to your questions based on them. And then to the right is general instructions. These are instructions that we add on every order for a specific client. So in this case, this is the real basic rundown of what you need to do. Call and confirm the appointment right away and put a note once you've made contact. In this case, if you can't reach the borrower, go to the appointment anyway. We're going to guarantee fee even if the borrower is not there. Print 2 sets of loan docs. So these are real general instructions. Take the time to review them. Like I said, it's a complaint we get, there's too many instructions, it's worth it. And then once you've read it, you don't have to read it every single time, the general instructions, but now you become a master at that one specific client, especially if you work with like coast to coast frequently. I'm thinking like Orange County people. Orange County people are going to get one specific client a lot. This one lender is really busy in Orange County, California. And so once you've read the instructions once, as long as you can remember them, you don't need to read them every single time. But you want to review them. Before you ask a question, review those instructions. Okay, so now's the time to make the introductory call. So you've reviewed the order, everything's there. If something's missing, you're going to ask the company that hired you, in this case, Coast to Coast, and it's time to make that call. Our policy requires that you call the signer within 2 hours of receiving the assignment to introduce yourself. I would suggest doing it as soon as you get the job. If you're at a signing, wait until you're done, of course, but as soon as you can. Even if the signing's in several days, sometimes notaries will say, well, I'm not going to call the signer until the day of the appointment. That is not good practice because our clients want to know that you're communicating with the signer. So make sure to call them as soon as you can. 2 hours is the best. And on that introductory call, you're going to want to introduce yourself, who you are, who you work with, and you're going to want to confirm the following items. So one, you want to confirm the signers to be present. In this example, we've got Timothy and Nishina. Both of those signers need to be present. We also want to confirm the time and date. So underneath there's an image, it says October 1st today, TBD. So in this case, there's a little flexibility, right? I have some notaries that I've trained here in California that really don't like TBD because it makes them nervous because they don't know if they're going to be able to fit it into their schedule. I personally like them. That means there is more flexibility. And most of the time, signers are flexible. So they might say, can you do 5 o'clock? What if you can only do 6 or 6:30? You can always ask, do you have some flexibility? If not, we can get another agent out. But yeah, you want to confirm the time and date. And you know what's huge? You have to confirm the location. Do not assume the information you received is correct. You can't assume that. You're going to assume it and you're going to go to the wrong place. I've done it more times than I would even like to mention, but I'll mention it anyways because you got to learn from my mistakes. Where I've maybe confirmed the city, but I didn't confirm the address, or I've just straight up didn't mention anything about the location, arrived to the house that I assume that it's at, nobody's there, or a renter's there and they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And now the appointment, best case scenario, they're just down the street. Worst case, you lost the job because you didn't confirm it. And now we have to call the signer, apologize that we didn't do that, and then send another notary out. So it can really delay a signing. So date, time, and really most importantly, location. We have one client who, if we didn't confirm who would be there or the location, she wouldn't pay us for the job at all. And of course, we'll pay our notary, but now we're losing money. Instead of making 25 bucks, we're losing 40 bucks. So think about that. Location important to verify. And then this is a really good one that we often neglect, and I've neglected it, but I don't want you to neglect it because it can really save a potential signing. You want to confirm that valid, unexpired government issued ID will be present. If they don't have it, you can get ahead of an error before we even get to the signing. So that might mean, okay, you might need to jog their memory too. Are you sure you don't have a passport? Sometimes people forget that passports are acceptable for ID. So they might say, oh yeah, I've got a passport. Okay, great, then we're good. Or if they don't have anything and it really is expired, maybe your state has some extensions because of COVID. I know lots of states in the Midwest do. Or maybe you're like, I think it's Washington, that you can actually accept an ID that's a 1 year expired, as long as it's within that 1 year. So getting to know your notary handbook for your state, super important, but you want to confirm that ahead of time. You might need to set up credible witness signings if your state allows it. So it lets you kind of get ahead of issues that could halt a signing when you're there. And you want to remember to confirm the names on the ID if possible. The tough thing about that one, which makes it kind of hard and tricky, is that most of the time we don't have docs ready for signings, especially if they're in advance, right? If they're days in advance, because really it's the name that's on the docs that determines whether we can notarize, right? But you can always ask, can you confirm the names as shown on your ID? That way I can compare them to the docs when they come in to make sure that we're good. You can catch a potential lender error or doc drawing error or notarization error that we're going to have later on down the line when you're actually with the signers. And you want to always remember the notary rule. ID can have more, not less, and not different than what's on the documents. So you might want to, on that introductory call, confirm the names, write those down, put them in our website in that activity section. And then when the docs come in, then you can compare and make sure that we're good to go for the notarization portion. And we'll talk more about that when we get docs. So this is an example of an introductory call. This is kind of wordy. And of course, this is just me talking, so it's one-sided. So of course, you want to give a back and forth. You don't want to just bombard the signer with tons of words. But this is how I introduce myself. And this is all of the points that I touch on that call. So, my name is Virginia. I work alongside whoever hired me or the lender. I'm the notary public that's scheduled to help you sign your Bank of the Best documents. I'm calling to confirm the best time and date for the signing, as well as your preferred signing location. I need to see your unexpired government issued ID for notarial reasons. Will you have this available? Do you mind confirming your name as shown on the ID so I can compare that with the documents? And The signing will take anywhere from 20 to 60 minutes, depending on how comfortable you are signing the documents. So I'm going to say all of those things on that initial call. I especially like to say the last point, the signing will take anywhere from, I typically say 20 to 40 minutes. But if you're new, you might feel like that's a stretch. So you could say 20 to 60 minutes. And depending on how comfortable you are, borrowers typically tell you. So they'll say, oh yeah, I've done this a million times. We're going to get through this super fast. Or they might say, oh, this is a purchase, so I'm a little nervous, so I might need a little bit more time. But you're really setting their time frame up. You're preparing them for the signing. So they know when you get there, it's only going to be 20 to 40 minutes. And so unless it's an unusual borrower, which does happen, some borrowers need more time, they're going to stick to that time frame. So that's how I make that call. Once the call has been made, so you receive the appointment, within 2 hours, you've made that initial call, you want to update the contracting company. So leave a detailed note of the call and the result. And on our website, if the signing is confirmed, you hit the button confirm. So at the very top, it'll say, please confirm, and then you can hit this orange button. When you hit that button, it generates an email to Coast, and all of our clients and anybody else who's on the order who needs updates. One particular client, which is one of our great clients, they rely on that confirmation email. That's what gets us documents. So that confirmed email that generates us to send that to our client, and then we get documents based on that. And the sooner we get that confirmation, the sooner we get docs. So don't neglect that step. If you can't reach the signer, again, leave a detailed note of how you made contact. And every time that you make contact, go ahead and put that note in the system. Again, we get an email when we see that note, and we let our clients know. That way our clients know that we're making contact, we're trying. Remember, I've said it before, our clients want our service to be like an Uber Eats, Grubhub, where we know when the food's in the kitchen, when the food's on the way to us, when it's been delivered. So more communication, the better. Really, you cannot go wrong with more communication. Okay, so again, if signer can't be reached, which happens, first off, if docs are up and it's a regular refinance signing, check the Uniform Residential Loan Application, also known as the 1003. That's going to have the signer's personal info, their phone numbers, their addresses, where they work. Sometimes there's an alternate form of contact, an email or another phone number. What if the phone number was entered wrong, which happens all the time, right? So if the phone number is entered wrong, then you can check that 1003. Normally the 1003 is right. Compare, give that alternate number a call. So that's a little sneaky trick. This happens all the time where notaries like, I can't do the signing if I can't get a hold of the borrowers. Maybe our clients aren't responding because they're super busy. We look at the 1003, there's a new number. Now we have it confirmed, signing's going, peace of mind for everyone. So that's a little trick. If signers are not reachable after 2 attempts, you may request alternate contact information. You can see to the left an example of what you will do. So this is that activity section. I wrote, I've called and left 2 voicemails for our signers, unable to reach them at the number provided. Do we have alternate contact info? And then wait and see if they send something over. I asked here, do I have permission to text the signer? Some notaries I've heard, and I actually read a book by a pretty popular notary training program individual, and he suggests always texting the signer first before calling. I don't suggest that. Why? Because we have clients who will ask for you to be deactivated if you text the signer. Yeah. One client bragged about how she had this notary removed because she texted her and that was just out of line. So you don't know who you're dealing with, right? Most people, they prefer text, right? Like me. In fact, I tell you, text me, don't call me, because I'm most likely not going to answer a call, but I'll definitely answer a text. But you never know who you go to. And a lot of big corporate clients, they have, a very strict standard of etiquette, and they think text is informal. So they want that initial call to be an actual call. And I suggest requesting permission to text the signer before texting, because you never know what client you're dealing with, and the client might get super mad that you texted instead of called, because we've had that happen before. And again, like I mentioned, communicate each attempt and notate your actions on the website. So one of the worst things as a status person at Coast to Coast. So our status team, they go through and they make sure signings are either scheduled or that we've tried to call the borrower and are being worked on. We'll see a good notary have no notes. It looks like nothing has happened. We call them, they say, oh yeah, I confirmed that days ago, but they didn't update our website. So something that Lisa, the owner, my mom, has said for 20 years is if it's not on the website, it didn't happen. So it might have actually happened, but how are we to know? Are we going to assume? Because every time we assume, we get it wrong, right? So update. That's your lifeline. It's your lifeline, and it's your proof of work. So what if the signers say, no one's called me? Well, we have several attempts notated from this date to this date. So you cover your back too. So activity is important. Lots of notes, more notes. Okay, so say you've confirmed it. Signing's confirmed and docs arrive. Now it's time to download and review. So one note, and this is something that as you progress in your career, you want to be more observant than just downloading what you have and kind of mindlessly printing. The more experience you get, you'll learn to make sure that everything is right, and you'll know what needs to be there and what according to the product. So confirm the product with the documents uploaded. So if it's a refinance and you see that on the website, it says single loan refinance, you want to make sure that all the docs are present that are typical for a refinance. So are the escrow docs there? Are the loan docs present? This requires you to have that knowledge, right? So watch our other videos, get our book when it's out. It has full samples of loan docs. You're not accountable for every single page, right? You don't need to know, 120 pages that everyone is there, but are the big players there? Are the escrow and the loan docs present? What if it's for a HELOC? You might notice there are no escrow docs, and that's okay, but you want to make sure there's a HELOC agreement and that there's a deed of trust or a mortgage. Or what if it's a deed package? So it's just a deed. This actually happened the other day. That's why I mention it. There was a deed and a few supplementary documents like a PCOR, which accompanies a deed. The deed wasn't actually added. Our client forgot to add the deed. And so the notary just goes and does it, but they didn't put two and two together. They didn't think, hey, this is a deed package signing according to the product, and yet there's no deeds. It didn't ring those alarm bells. So that's why you really need to, watch all of our videos, because we're going to teach you all of that. But knowing the products and confirming with what you have. So really being present and observant. Okay, so you've made sure this is a HELOC. I don't have escrow docs, but I've got my agreement and I've got my deed of trust. We're good. Next, you want to look at the names on the docs and the signers. So on our order, it said Timothy and Nishina. On the docs, it says Timothy and Nishina. Are there any additional signers on the docs? So that means skimming through them, scrolling through, making sure that you don't see any other name. What if there's a grant deed and Cheryl Keefe is on it, someone else is on it? You want to call the signer and say, hey, I see there's another document. You might want to let the client know that there's another signer. Do they need to be present? So going through the docs, making sure that the names on the docs, you've confirmed those signers are present. So you might need to call the signer. What if on the order it only said Timothy, but the docs say Timothy and Nishina? Don't just go, well, I guess they don't need Nishina. No, they're gonna need Nishina, most likely. Nishina is gonna sign one way or another, unless it was an error, but most of the time it's not. It's probably a split signing, or maybe they are signing together. So call the signer back and just say, hey, I see Nishina's on the docs. Is she going to be present? That's all you have to do. And the names, that's where, when we did on the introductory call by asking for the full name as appears on their ID, that's where it comes into play, because now you can see if there's going to be a potential notary error. So what if the documents say Nishina Elizabeth Dibert, but her ID only said Nishina Dibert? That's an issue, right? Because the docs have more than what's on the ID. What if the ID says Tim Dibert, but the documents say Timothy Dibert? Well, technically that's okay. Now that's something, and I'm bringing this up for a reason. Recently, we had an issue where a notary refused to sign the docs because Becky was on the documents. Her ID said Rebecca. So there is a provision in the law that the notary can use their discretion. Is Becky a common nickname for Rebecca? Of course, right? Of course. Is Tim a common nickname for Timothy? Absolutely. So you can proceed. You can proceed. Now, what if it was like Steve is on the docs, but his ID is Timothy? That's really not a common nickname for Timothy. So that would be a no-go. But that's the rule. So the ID can have more, not less, not different, unless it's a common nickname. So yeah, that's something else you can review. Now, if you don't do that, you're just kind of making it so where you might have a problem later on at the signing. And the way that you really think of the signing, the well-being of the signing on the whole, is by setting it up for success. Because going out there, it delays everything, right? The signing is going to get delayed. The docs are going to get delayed. So if you can catch all these things beforehand, everyone's going to love you. You're going to be a team player. Everyone's going to be super happy. Okay, so you're still reviewing the documents. You want to also see if there are any defects with the scan. So is it super light where you can't see anything? Or what about, this is a real life example to the left. Is it cut off? And this isn't when you've printed it. This is just the scan, the PDF scan. If it's cut off, hey, we have an issue. So no, that's not your fault, but it's someone's fault and it's going to cause a problem. So you want to review the documents and make sure they look whole and complete. You know, it's another one. And this was, I don't know, maybe the error of this past month is you want to review the creation dates. So to do that, you want to look at the note or the deed of trust or mortgage. Those are the most important documents, and their date really kind of dictates signing. So docs can be signed after the creation date for many states and many products, but you can never sign post-dated refinance or HELOC documents ever. So for example, we're signing with Tim and Nishina today, the 1st, but if the docs are dated the 4th, we've got an issue. If you see that, do not go to the signing. Call the contracting company, put a message in there and say, hey, do you want us to schedule for the 4th, or should we get new docs because these are post-dated? Now, what if you do the signing? Anyways, because I've done it. I remember the first time my mom told me, this was new in my career, my mom told me, you made a mistake. And I was new, but a little bit arrogant. And I was like, I did not make a mistake. And she's like, yeah, you did. You signed docs for the 8th and it was the 5th. And I was like, well, how was I supposed to know that? Well, she's like, well, you can't cash a post-dated check, right? It's like these docs don't exist until that date. They're not good until that date. So I remember going back. Borrower was annoyed, you know, rightly so, because at that point he thought his loan would have already funded. And now we have to re-sign, you know, 4 days later or whatever it was. So look at the creation dates. Just make sure that they're today or a date in the past, not a date in the future. We paid, and Lisa will tell you after, we'll ask her, I don't know, we had to pay same day shipping to get that done. I think it was like, I don't know, $800. She'll correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, to fix that, that was a big pain. So it's an easy fix. And our clients, and this is something that you might think, well, why does that even happen? Like, who's not catching it? Our clients make mistakes. You know, it just is what it is. They're going to see, oh, we got docs, let's upload them now, let's get it done. And they're going to miss that little note from the lender that says docs are good after the 4th. So it's just going to happen. So if you can prevent it, again, escrow is going to love you. We're going to love you. We're going to be like, oh man, you know, you saved us on that one. You're going to be a favorite. So keep that in mind. Okay, another thing to review before you print is, are funds due to close? So funds are due to close if money is due to or from the signer. So if the borrower has to pay money to close the loan, there's going to be documents that tell us that. The main place is the settlement statement, which is an escrow document, also known as the SS. This is an example. So due from the borrower, $3,000. Typically, if it shows that on the settlement statement, there'll be another document that looks like the one to the left here, which will say notice of funds due to close. And then it'll give you their options. You can bank wire from the bank, or the borrower can provide a cashier's check. And it even says, you know, the limit to the cashier's check and the limit to the personal check. So look out for documents like that. At this point, you might want to call the borrower again and just let them know, hey, it looks like there's this amount due from you as shown on the documents. Are you going to have a check? Are you going to wire it? Did you prepare a cashier's check? And again, that just looks out for the success of the signing, and it prepares the signer. So they're going to feel really confident by the time they get to signing. And if there's an issue, it can be addressed now rather than when you're at the table. So that's another note. Okay, so you've reviewed the docs, everything looks good, you're ready to print. Download each attachment and make sure you didn't miss an attachment. So on our end, we can see which forms you have and you have not downloaded. So in this case, this is another real life example of a deed that didn't get downloaded, and our client was super mad. And recently, this client actually told us that they're not going to use us anymore because of notary mistakes. It's super sad and frustrating, but it is what it is. We're going to lose signing clients because of errors like this, not downloading a doc. So you want to really double check everything you've downloaded. Don't miss an attachment. Might mean triple checking. Okay, did I download that one? Yeah, print it. Look through the docs. Always keep extra paper and toner handy. Keep an extra toner, maybe an extra drum, and have legal and letter. You don't want to turn down a signing, or even worse, accept a signing 30 minutes before the appointment, ask to be reassigned because you ran out of paper. I mean, you should learn to troubleshoot, which basically is always have paper there. And if you don't, have someone who can run to the store to pick some paper up for you. But always have those extra. It happens to me. The other day, I ran out of toner and I was signing some loan docs, had to run to the store real quick and get some. When you're printing anything, any signing you do with Coast to Coast, and I would say any signing company or escrow agent, you want to print 2 copies, one for the signer to keep and one for the signing. And you want to keep them separated too. Don't include them in one big stack that at the signing table you have to separate. Keep them separated, print the borrower's copies, print your copies. And I suggest using binder clips. Rubber bands can break. They don't hold them together as nicely as a binder clip. It's a little bit more money, but it's worth it. You can get them cheap online. And then as you're printing, you want to make sure that all documents are present and that the critical documents are there. So again, that's going to vary depending on the product, but for loan signings, refinance, purchase loan signings, you're always going to have a note. You're always going to have a deed of trust or mortgage. You may have a right to cancel if it's a refinance of your primary residence. They're going to be escrow docs, Patriot Act, signature names. The other documents may or may not be included, but you're going to always want to make sure there's a note in the deed of trust. So if you have a package and you don't see the note, check the scan. Maybe your printer made a mistake. Tell the signing company if you don't see those forms there. Those are the big guys. They're going to always be there. If they're not there, that's a problem. And then as you're printing, you want to review the forms. Make sure you notice where you're going to notarize and have the borrower sign. If it's a form you don't understand, ask the company that hired you. Okay, so as you're printing, you don't want to just passively be printing. You want to be involved and make sure that everything looks good. So keep a lookout for cutoff docs. Are any documents cut off because of a printer mistake? We have to the right here the legal size paper test page that Hannah from our company created, which is awesome. If the spiky border is cut off, it's not all the way around, we have a problem. You're going to have to reset your printer settings and get that reprinted. And here's a little sneaky trick. Now, some lenders really, really want letter and legal according to what they've already dictated. But say you just can't figure out your legal and you really have to only print on letter. You can unselect, choose paper source by PDF size and print everything on letter, but you want to make sure nothing's cut off. And you want to make sure that the docs weren't scanned for legal in a way that would shrink them super tiny. I did a loan signing the other day. I didn't have legal. And so I said, okay, I'm going to just print letter. But they were like, so basically what escrow did was they were sent the loan docs and then they printed them again on legal and then scanned them. They were really only letter size, but they were scanned for legal. So if I were to print them just on letter, it would have made them super mini. So do that with caution. You might want to ask the company that's hiring you or email me, Virginia at C2C Signings, and I can help you determine whether that's a option or not. You want to also look out for toner drum issues. We've recently had to get a whole set of loan docs re-signed because the toner was so light. It was so light that we had to get everything re-signed. And borrower was super mad. Yeah, super mad, very frustrated because they had to get, they expected to be funded and they were not funded in time. You want to also make sure that you're not printing on duplex or double-sided. How does this happen? I know you're just trying to save paper, right? You think, oh, this will save paper. This will cut the package in half. It's going to need to get re-signed every single time. No real estate documents for loans can be printed on duplex or double-sided. So just don't do it. It's not worth the hassle and it's super frustrating. And there's no exception. I've never heard of an exception like, oh, we'll accept this time. No, re-sign always. And then after printing, you want to briefly compare what printed and what the PDF looks like online. You want to make sure that nothing is missed, nothing is cut off, nothing looks weird, that nothing's super light or super dark. And something that I do to make sure that my printer didn't run out of paper or skip a page is I look at the first page of the PDF and the last page, and then I compare it to my package that printed. So sometimes what'll happen is that your printer will run out of paper, and maybe it doesn't alarm you or you didn't hear it or you're in the other room and you just grab the docs and go. And then escrow will say, where are the last 15 pages of the docs? You didn't realize that your printer stopped printing because it ran out of paper. So you want to make sure nothing gets missed. You want to make sure you have the front to the back of the package. Okay, and lastly, in preparing for the signing, you want to double check your notary bag. So you should have a little notary bag, little briefcase, laptop bag that is big enough to hold sets of legal documents. And I make a little note here. I've left for signings and left my notary bag, left my docs, left my journal. And I get to the signing and I'm like, I'll be back. You know, best case scenario, they're down the street from me. Worst case, you have to do the signing and then say, well, I'm going to make a second trip to make sure that we get my notary journal signed. It's happened to me. It happened to me recently. They were super close, but still I felt like a ding dong. You know, it's like you get there and you're like, well, turning around. So double check, slow it down. That's our biggest thing. And we say it in our whole company for everything, slow it down. So have your notary bag, put the documents in there. Make sure you have both copies. Make sure you have pens. I clearly remember one signing when I first started out, I forgot all my pens and I had to go to like 7-Eleven and buy pens and they were the worst pens. They barely worked. It was very stressful. I would have blue and black, minimum of 4 each. Just have a bunch of pens, right? That don't chintz on the pens. Buy some good gel pens or some nice ballpoints that are easy to use. Don't forget your notary journal. We suggest keeping a journal even if your state doesn't require it. Just keep a journal. It really protects you and the signer. I don't know why some states don't require it. I think that's kind of crazy. This is a big deal, right? These are loan documents. These are people's financial lives. Keep a journal. I suggest it's worth it. Make sure you have your stamp. Make sure you have your thumb printer. That's another one that like, you're going to have to make a second trip if a thumb printer is required in your state. So keep that. My journal has a little, my thumb printer has a little like sticky, or I'll buy some double-sided tape and I put it right on top of my journal. So there is no losing my thumb printer. It's right there. You might want to keep some Post-it notes and don't forget your cell phone. Right? You're going to need that during the signing, even if it's just to update your signing status, right? But you never know if you need to make some calls. So yeah, double check your notary bag. You might, if you don't have a notary bag, invest in one, right? There's lots of well-priced ones on Amazon that are also attractive, and you can set them up so you're always prepared. And don't leave it in your car. Always take it into your home or your office afterwards, because we've had many notary bags stolen from their cars. And you can imagine that's kind of scary, right? So there you go. You've prepared for the signing. That's all for today. Next time we're going to do part 2, which is on the way to the signing and at the signing. So this one's going to be a little bit more involved. We're going to go over the entire process, red flags, things to look out for, issues that can happen that will prevent a smooth signing. We're also put a little note, Nicole from our team added this. If you have any funny stories about signings, be prepared to share it next time. So we're not going to do a class next week, but the week after we'll send out a reminder and we'll have audience participation, and me and Lisa and everyone else from our team will have a crazy story for you guys. So get yours ready too.